Welcome to the Karu Distillery Masterclass. Thanks for joining us. Pull out your tasting mat. You're going to need 3 glasses to taste all the spirits separately. And we also want you to have a glass at the end for your cocktail and a little bit of ice to shake it up with. You'll also need some water just to keep you hydrated throughout the masterclass. Sit back, relax. We'll have a few breaks in between each spirit. Now over to Nick and Ally. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Ally.
And I'm Nick.
And we're Karu Distillery, situated in the beautiful foothills of the Blue Mountains, New South Wales.
We're a small batch distillery, just as Ally said, situated at the base of the Blue Mountains. We were established in 2017 and we released our first gin, Affinity, in 2018.
So we've released Affinity with the idea that it would be something that could rope in a whole new kind of people that weren't really that in love with the dry gin kind of approach to the spirit. So when we were doing this, it was more something that was for us and also something that was for gin enthusiasts as well and newcomers, because it's a fantastic spirit. So it's at 44% as well, is very much a contemporary style of gin. So it has more of your juniper forward notes, your semi-sweet citrus, a little bit of floral, and then that rounds off with nice kind of almond and vanilla towards the end, which makes it very smooth. So it's very focused on your aromatics, your mouthfeel, and also is fantastic to just drink on its own.
It's a dangerously easy gin to drink. We set out with the goal with Affinity. It took us about 6 months or so to create the recipe and 26 plus attempts. Ally and I just sort of hidden away. We've eaten hundreds of different botanicals, lots of single distillates and trials along the way to see what really balanced together well, neat. And also with the goal of using predominantly Australian farmed and grown botanicals. So we actually grow the lemon myrtle for our gin at the distillery door and it goes fresh straight into the still. The first sip.
So one of the first things that you kind of notice about Affinity is that it's very aromatic. So you get a lot of that really big juniper profile at the start and then promises with a little bit more of your sweeter citruses. You really get a lot of that follow through of the sweet citrus come through with a little bit more of your floral, so your lavender notes, and then that pairs really beautifully with more of the cardamom that comes in towards the end, and then that really nice silky vanilla and almond that just comes through.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite part, is you get this like lovely sort of texture that comes from the almonds, and the orange just brings that mouthfeel in, and the vanilla is just naturally sweet at the end there, bringing it all together. I really like the one of my favorite things of Affinity is the sort of pomegranate and rosella hibiscus you get kind of in the middle there.
It gives it a really nice kind of tart profile, especially with the use of more of like your lower sugar tonics. Delicious.
Problem is, it's just too smashable. Lightning, our very striking navy strength gin, is the recipe was designed by Ally, our distiller, late 2018, just after we released Affinity, with the goal to create a navy strength gin with that higher citrus component. At that higher alcohol percentage of 57.5%, you're really getting the citrus, the grapefruit and the sweet mandarin coming through. The lemon myrtle and the rose geranium in there just pulls the whole thing together. So what Ally did with the Lightning Gin is she treats the juniper in 2 different ways. She macerates the juniper and vapor distillation. So with that, what you're actually getting is these really lovely juniper oils at the end and a light sort of piney, delicate juniper throughout the actual gin itself.
So as well, it has triple layers of citrus, so it focuses more on your bitter, sweet and herbaceous. So the bitter is accommodated by your ruby grapefruit, your herbaceous is accommodated by the fresh lemon myrtle that comes straight from our distillery, and also the sweet comes from the mandarin, which we grow all of these citruses as well. last rodeo.
Do you want to start talking about it?
So again, up front, you do get a lot of that very big juniper, bold kind of flavors coming through. Then you get a lot more of your citrus come through as well, but a different one to Affinity. So you get more of your mandarin, your grapefruit, the lemon myrtle really coming through.
What I really like with Lightning is it's a burst of flavor, and then you get this, it's almost like a hug of the juniper and the vanilla at the end from those oils of the juniper coming through. And at the start, it's sort of just bursts through this citrus, and you add a bit of ice in there, and the mandarin just comes through.
I like the really bright kind of effects that it comes through with the rose geranium accommodated with that citrus as well. It kind of gives it a little bit more of a herbaceous floral profile as opposed to just a floral. It's just bright and really nice. And great over ice. There you go.
Lightning's got a really nice natural sweetness, and that's coming from the honey bush and the vanilla. They just really give this sort of subtle sweet component on the palate, but nothing too overpowering.
Because of its big juniper profiles as well, makes it a really versatile gin with tonic water as well. So the gin that you pair a tonic water with is very important. So this one especially goes with a diverse range. I really like to garnish Lightning with a floral component, so it just softens it up a little bit more.
I like the pineapple in there.
I like pineapple too. Pineapple and habanero is an absolute winning combination with this gin. So the next up on our tasting journey is our barrel-aged gin. So this one is tailored for the barrel. It's a New South Wales collaboration between our distillery Karu and Craftworks Distillery out in Kapiti. So how this project came about was Crafty came over to our distillery one afternoon, and he was just like, I've got this barrel and I want you guys to put Affinity in it if that's something that you're interested in. And we were just like, no, Affinity is not a barrel-aged gin. There are just so many components that we feel in this gin did not work. So we made one that was specifically tailored to the barrel that Crafty dropped off for us.
So this cask is a 40-year-old sherry cask, recouped into a whiskey cask, then a gin tailor distilled solely for this cask. So what our distiller, went all nerd on this one. We spent 5 months developing the recipe. We left distillates on oak to see what botanicals really, how they changed within the cask, then retweaked them for the distillate for the barrel. So what she's done is she's actually what have you actually done? Have you actually made this?
You're making it sound suspicious.
What Ally's done is she actually smoked up juniper with applewood before putting it in the still, and what we found with that is it gives this really lovely sweet smoke in the middle, and that pairs perfectly with the whiskey influence. And then at the end we've got a bit of chocolate and orange in there, and that works really nicely with a light sort of sherry coming through. So this one's up at a higher alcohol percentage at 47%, and with that is where we found the orange and the smoke really coming together with the chocolate. Would you like to say a bit more about it?
So this one as well, when it came down to how you treated the botanicals, especially with the juniper, since it's applewood smoke infused, it was picking the right wood to kind of do that as well, and using all of this with our knowledge of gin that we have, because at the time we weren't doing anything that was barrel aged. Now we are, so we get to know a little bit more about it. But at that point of time, it was just taking our understanding fully from a gin perspective and applying it to something that is aged.
Goes really nicely, if you haven't finished it already. Goes really nicely with a bit of ginger ale and strawberries. Okay, want to try some?
Mm-hmm. So just like every other gin, you do have that very predominant juniper profile, but it does come a bit across a bit more warmth in in the nose, a little bit more sweet as well.
With a barrel-aged gin, the time on oak is is a very interesting process. So this one's 3.5 months on oak, and what we found there is you're still getting this sort of nice light juniper in without it being too prominent. Too much more on oak, it starts almost becoming a whiskey. So we found this was the balance, sat really nicely at 3.5 months with this particular project.
So this gin as well was aged, as Nick mentioned before, 3 months in summertime. So what that means is a little bit more of the water component within this gin did evaporate, which means that the ABV creeps up a little bit more, and it also digs into the barrel.
What I get on the first sip is I get this really nice sort of warming bit of vanilla, and then you just get this chocolate, but it's the bitter sort of nice like bitter side of a chocolate, and then a vanilla, and there's a little bit of almonds in this one too, just again to pull that texture together.
And also honey bush tea, which features in our Lightning Gin as well. So this gin does have a very big Karu kind of DNA coming through with it. And it's delicious.
You did a very good job on this one.
So it is very rich. It does smell like it tastes very warm. So it does have a little bit of a heat to it, but that subsides with a lot of sweetness that comes through.
This project itself is actually over a year old. Like we said, it came about when Craftworks came to us with a cask, and this was early 2019. And the development of the gin took like about 5 to 6 months or so. We finally got it on oak, and we actually ended up having to decant it when we evacuated the distillery during the large forest fires of 2019, 2020. And it actually then spent some time at our house on the spare bed over Christmas. So it's a very well-traveled gin. From there, we then rested it for several months, and what the resting period did, it just really helped mellow this gin out. So that's why you just get this, so much of the flavor come through, because it's had that time to sit. It's really had that time to sit. So this is actually close to a year old now. We're going to save a bottle for ourselves.
Hi there, and welcome to Behind the Stick with Quynh. Today we are making a shelf-stable Gin Colada. What is shelf-stable, you might ask? It means we can pre-make it, bottle it, store it, and drink it safely at a later date. First up, we have the Karu Lightning Gin from Grose Vale in the Blue Mountains. 1 part, this gin is 57.5%. The higher the ABV, the better the shelf life. Up next, from our friends at Monin, we're using 2/3 of their pina colada mix. And now we're just going to dilute the drink slightly by adding 1/3 of water. Next up, we're adding 2 drops of Mr. Bitter's agave and grapefruit bitters. And last up, we're adding 4 drops of the Wonder Foam. It's vegan friendly, and it's a great alternative to egg white. Now, 2 options. We can dry shake, or we can shake with ice. So dry shaking, it's basically shaking without ice. And what we do here, we actually serve it over an ice cube. The alternative is to shake it with ice. And what this does, it chills the drink down, adds a little bit more dilution, and then I'd serve it in a Nicanora glass. And last but not least, we garnish this with a freeze-dried pineapple chunk. And there you have it. Now kick back and enjoy your Karu Gin Colada.
Well, we hope you learned a thing or two with us at Karu. Thank you so much for supporting Australian distilleries, especially through Nip of Courage. For more information, you can find us on our website, which is www.karudistillery.com.au. And be sure to check out our socials and give that a like.